Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about something pretty personal, which is how I learned to cure my own anxiety by stopping my negative feedback loop. Basically, every time I felt triggered, whenever I was annoyed or irritated, or I could feel myself going down this loop or this spiral of negativity, I would just tell myself, no. I would give my brain a mental slap and be like, no, we're not going to think about that. We're not going to go down that path today. This is not the time to be thinking about it. Maybe some days I'm a little more gentle to myself when I give myself these little messages. Instead of a slap in the mental face, I will just be like, no, today is not the time to be thinking about that. Right now is not the time to be thinking about that. We can always think about that later. And somehow this trick really works, because I realized that what I was doing to myself was basically creating my own mental negative feedback loop, where I would just get triggered by something and then go down a spiral and then trigger myself and then re-trigger myself and then keep triggering myself. Nothing was happening in the moment except for my own thoughts, abusing myself over and over by replaying events that no longer existed except in my mind. And I would just replay them and torture myself and continue down this negative spiral. And I realized that because it was all in my mind and because I was doing this to my own self, that it was actually very easy to stop by just telling myself no, that we are not going to go down that path anymore. And I take that back. It's not easy. It's not something easy to do. For me, it took a lot of practice, but it really was that simple. Even though it wasn't easy, it was rather simple, and it just ended up being like anything else, where I practiced at it and I was able to get better at it and to learn how to stop abusing myself. Like I said, that it's simple for me to say that I can do this for myself, but it's harder than it seems. And there are some techniques that help me to get to where I am right now, where I learned how to cure my own anxiety and to stop my negative spiral. And they're actually practical steps that you can start incorporating in your own life, whether you're in a negative feedback loop right now, or if you are in a safer space where you can practice this, so that when you are in a negative feedback spiral, you can learn how to stop it from happening and then to move on with your life. The first one is very powerful and it's easy and instant, and it's from a book called Never Get Angry Again. But the trick itself is, when you feel yourself getting angry, you can actually stop and smile to yourself and take a deep breath. And then hold it for like 5 seconds and then let it out slowly. You can do that multiple times until you feel the anger dissipate, because what's actually happening is when you smile and breathe, it sends a physiological message from your body to your brain that you are actually safe and that nothing is happening to attack you physically in the moment. Because when you're happy, you smile naturally, but you can do that in the reverse as well. So if you are smiling, your body will immediately assume that you are happy. It's also why it's so fun to take selfies, especially with friends, because you're pretending to be happy and smiling for the camera. It actually does make you feel pretty happy over time. It's kind of crazy that we can trick our brains into feeling happy in a fake way, but it's also this mental trick that you can do for yourself. When you're feeling a little down or a little angry about something, you can just smile and breathe to yourself. It sounds kind of creepy. It doesn't have to be like a huge smile. It can be just like a gentle curve of your lips. If you are sitting in a meeting or something and somebody just happens to say something that gets you all riled up, just give yourself a little smile and take a deep breath. Even right now that I just did that, it felt really, really good. Not angry, but it helped me to calm down my nervous system even in this very small moment. And that's just something that you can do for yourself. Give it a try even when you're not in a negative spiral. In fact, all of these techniques you should try to practice when you're not in a downward spiral, so that when you catch yourself in one, it'll be easier because you've practiced these techniques and it'll send the immediate message to your brain that you are safe. The biggest thing that helped was recognizing that I was putting myself into these patterns where I was really bullying myself with my own mental loops of replaying things that were no longer happening. And so catching myself in these patterns was actually the first and most important thing that I learned how to do, was recognizing when these patterns were happening so that I could stop them. And you can try all of these techniques, but until you catch yourself in the moment of being in one of these patterns, until you learn to recognize it and to stop it in real time, you're not going to be able to fix this. So becoming aware of when you're about to downward spiral is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself in order to breaking the loop. Because when you are ruminating on things that are not happening right now, the only person who's bullying yourself is you. The only person who is creating these events that are happening is you. And when you ruminate and replay things that are happening in your head, your body doesn't know the difference between what's happening only in your head and what's actually happening. So it will actually recreate the same stress patterns that you felt as if the events were actually happening again. You're recreating these events and re-triggering yourself when you don't don't necessarily need to. You do have permission to let go. And if you need permission, I am giving you permission. It's okay to let go. It's okay to let go of the past. It doesn't have to stay with you. You can move on. You can stop clinging to something that's no longer helping you. There is nothing that it's doing for you. Hanging on to your past or moments in your past, replaying them in your mind is not going to do anything for you. You're not going to be able to change the events just because you replay them. And just because you make yourself suffer over and over again doesn't change anything about the past or about yourself. It's just creating further damage and creating more scars in your own emotions and your mind. And it's okay to stop. You don't have to keep beating yourself up. You are going to be okay. If it's possible for you, try to find a safe way where you can practice saying no to negative spirals as soon as you catch them. Find something small, something annoying to you, a pet peeve that you've always struggled with. For me, it's whenever anyone cuts me off in traffic. This is something like minimal, as in once it's over, it's not going to impact the rest of my day. I don't have an emotional attachment to those drivers. But when it happens, I get so emotional. I get so annoyed and irritated. When someone cuts me off in traffic, it's very annoying to me. And I usually go down this loop of like, oh my God, why did they do that? They must hate me. What a terrible person they are. You know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So this must say a lot about them. And instead of going down that negative feedback loop, what I do now is I go, no, we're not going to think about that right now. We're just going to breathe. And in that moment, I'll do that technique I talked about where I just smile and breathe. Then I try to direct my thoughts into something more positive. What I'm grateful for, like I really love trees, and I will look at a tree and be like, wow, what a magnificent, beautiful tree. I'm so grateful to live in a universe where that tree exists. It sounds very woo-woo and so cheesy, but it actually really works. Once I did that and started practicing that, I challenged myself to do that at least 5 times a day, just that one very small annoyance. And then once I learned how to do that and I mastered that, I realized that I was sending myself down a negative spiral in many different ways, in issues both small and annoyances both small and huge. And once I started catching myself doing that and telling myself no, it was easier to catch the bigger things that would trigger me and send me down a spiral. And in doing that and recognizing my patterns, it became a lot easier to catch the patterns and to direct myself into a more healthy stream of consciousness and stream of thought that would help regulate my emotions and regulate my nervous system and make me a happier and calmer person. For you, try to find something simple at first to practice this and start off small and start off with a challenge of doing this 5 times a day until you master it, and then you can find something bigger and master that until you start recognizing your own negative feedback loops. You start recognizing your own triggers and your own patterns, and over time you'll be able to knock yourself off your own negative feedback loops. It's a simple thing to do, but it's not easy. I still practice at it. I still have days where this is really hard, where I'm just overly stimulated and easily triggered. There are days that are harder than others, and I'm still practicing at it. I'm still trying to recognize other triggers that I have and trying to unpack the trauma in my childhood that are making it harder for me to break my negative feedback loop. But I'm just here to say that it's possible. I was a very triggered person. I was constantly angry. I was constantly mad. I was constantly annoyed and just always overstimulated and always wondering, why are people out to attack me and to get me? And it's just not a great way to live your life, to go around feeling so angry and so hurt all the time. Learn that you can create a better life for yourself once you are no longer so unhappy and bogged down by negative emotions and patterns that are just holding you back. If you find that it is impossible to even get started on this, like I said, just start small. Allow yourself to feel any emotions. There are some days where I just can't say no to my own thoughts and my own negative feedback loop, and I do want to go down the spiral. It feels very indulgent. It's like eating junk food. In the moment, it feels so good and so delicious to allow myself to think ugly thoughts and to allow myself to abuse myself in my own brain. But then afterwards, I feel like crap. I crash from the sugar and the junk, and my brain feels like I just beat myself up because I did replay events that were not necessary for me to keep reliving. Those days are rarer for me now, but they still happen because I'm still human and I'm still trying at this. I'm still practicing at this and I'm still trying to get it right. So on those days, I still allow myself to feel any emotions that I need to process in the moment, but then I try as soon as possible to use these techniques that I mentioned and then to get back on track and to direct my brain into a more healthy thought pattern. So the techniques I mentioned are smiling in the moment and breathing deeply. That is something that you can do in the moment if you're feeling triggered or annoyed, but then you can do other things to help regulate your nervous system, things that you might not be able to do in the moment that will help if you practice when you're not feeling so triggered. Things like EFT tapping, I've talked about that at length in other videos. And meditating is great. If you find meditating a little difficult and boring like I do sometimes, I actually love EFT tapping, especially when you do an EFT tap that leads into meditating. It feels less boring for me and it feels more productive for some reason, even though they're kind of the same thing. They both regulate your nervous system and teach you to calm down your thoughts, but I recommend both EFT tapping and meditating. I also recently learned about heart coherence breathing. It is a form of meditating, but you breathe into your heart and recreate some sort of elevated emotions like happiness, gratitude, compassion, and your heart will feel so light and so uplifted and so amazing and happy. And it's been like the best thing I've done for myself, and I look forward to it every night now. It makes me feel so happy for some reason, even though all I'm doing is breathing in a different way and thinking about my heart while I'm breathing. But I recommend looking up some YouTube meditations on heart coherence breathing and just learning more about it and how it can help regulate your nervous system. There's also journaling, of course. I used to journal a lot, but now I do more sketching and then little side notes about my day. I consider it more like memory keeping, but I find it very meditative. Those are just some techniques that you can do when you're not feeling so triggered to help calm down your nervous system. I used to do this thing where I would have meandering thoughts that just kind of rolled over and over and over in my head, and then I got really into meditating, and then at one point I was in this very, very chaotic loop where I just like kept going and going and going and my thoughts would not stop. And then I just took a deep breath because probably I needed to breathe, and because I had been meditating when I wasn't in a spiral every night, my brain was suddenly like, oh, we're breathing. That means it's time to relax now. And it cut off all of my chaotic thoughts. And that was when I realized that all the practices that I do at night in my nighttime routine that don't immediately have a direct impact on my stress level really come into play and really make a difference when I am in a downward spiral or in some sort of anxiety loop where I can't seem to stop. The practices that I do at night really do help me come into play, the same way that exercising for your body will help you at some point during the day when you need to do something hard. These practices are worth doing. Even if you don't feel the immediate results right away, you'll notice that they make a huge impact on your life over time. So those are just some of the ways that I've learned to break my own negative feedback loops, and I wanted to share them with you guys to show that it's possible. What are some of the things that you guys have learned to do? Like, what are some meditative activities that you really love to do? Because I know that there's like Zentangle, there's all sorts of hobbies. I know people crochet or knit as a form of therapy, and I really love learning what helps other people. So if you have something of your own that you love to do that helps you break your negative feedback loop, let me know in the comments below. And by the way, my name is Van. I'm an author and librarian. My books include Girl Giant and the Monkey King, which is a middle grade series based on Vietnamese mythology, as well as books for adults like Monstrous Mrs. Mai and Silver and Smoke. And I also have a newsletter. Every month I talk about my publishing updates, writing updates, crafts, and things that I'm obsessed with. If you want to sign up, it's on my website, authorvanhoang.com. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, please give it a like and subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye!